It's one of those feel-good Olympic stories that dreams are made of, or so we thought. When Mark was 5, the Tewksbury family moved from Calgary to Dallas. He beat the Texas heat by hanging out at the local pool. But when the family moved back to Calgary, well, Mark just kept on swimming. The 76 Summer Games inspired him to race competitively, and 12 years later, he won a silver medal in Seoul. And then in 1992, at the Games in Barcelona, Mark exploded. Not literally, he just got really fast. He broke the Olympic record for the 100-meter backstroke, capturing gold in the hearts of this glorious country. And when he retired from competition, Mark started what looked like a promising career with the International Olympic Committee. But inside, he was drowning. Mark was gay. He considered coming out, but was discouraged by the IOC, discouraged by fellow athletes, even his coaches. They said the world wasn't ready, but Mark was. In 1998, he came out, Canada's first openly gay Olympian. And while he did lose a few endorsement deals, he's actually found new meaning in his life.
The spirit of the Olympics has been betrayed by the actions of the International Olympic Committee.
He spoke out against IOC corruption, founded the first ever World Out Games, and became a mentor to athletes who felt stuck in the closet. And it's as a mentor that Mark finds himself back on the Canadian Olympic team. He is leading the charge to London as Canada's chef de mission.
Instead of the most gold medals, which we achieved in Vancouver, we're looking for a top 12 finish out of the over 200 countries competing.
Please welcome Mark Tewksbury.
Hey, bud. I guess I athletically enter. That's great.
Man, when I heard you became the mission chef, I thought, oh my God, he's now a cook. But it turns out...
Which I can do.
You can do.
I can do, but not for 400.
No, now you're the chief mission.
Yeah, chef de mission of the 2012 London Olympic team for Canada.
It's a pretty incredible story for you to be that guy, don't you think?
Well, it's a very exciting place to be for me.
Is it?
I've seen the athletes from a number of different perspectives, and it's great to be the head of their delegation on, you know, the time it counts the most.
But it means that you're the same guy that was a big part of that organization that protested Olympic corruption and quit. So the idea of you weren't even a part of the organization to be in this position, that's got to be a bit of a strange journey for you.
Yeah, I left, I think, February 1999, all of my posts within the Olympic movement, and much has changed, obviously, in 12 years, on their side and on my side. You know, at my 40s, life isn't quite as black and white as it might have been in my 20s, but it feels right to be back.
But your issues with corruption, have those been addressed?
Some. I mean, I think that there's been lots of change in leadership. Certainly, I believe 100% in the leadership in Canada with the Olympic Committee.
Antonio Samrak was the one that was
Juan Antonio Samrak died before I came back. The person that was my mentor within Canada also died. So there's been really a change of leadership in the most significant ways. So that baggage wasn't there.
For a lot of people around the world, this is the picture that they saw. See, when you were on the cover of Time magazine. Look at that.
Yay.
What were you 24 in that picture?
My dentist loves that picture, by the way. He's like, yeah, that's me. Yeah, I was 24.
What would you say to that guy?
Well, I thank the photographer that said, bite the medal. You know, it was such a cheesy... Yeah, somebody yelled it, and I was like, really? And I did it, and bam, cover. I was like, thank you.
That's fantastic.
No, I mean, it was totally overwhelming, actually. I saw that for the first time. When you're at the Olympics themselves, and this is what the athletes will face in London, you're in this amazing bubble where you're just shooting for your best performance, you're surrounded by the world's best athletes, and you're not really privy, a little bit more now, but in my day, there was no outside media at all. Yeah. You were really in a bubble. And so I had no idea. I got on the plane in London. Back then it was Canadian Airlines. I was out of Gatwick, and I remember sitting down, and they used to have these blue folders that covered the magazines, and I opened it, and it was me on the cover of Time, and I shrieked. I went, ah! And they're like, wow, not very jockey. But anyway, but it was a real shock.
Well, I mean, you weren't out at the time in that picture, were you?
No. No.
That's
no.
Really...
What are you talking about, George?
Mark, don't make me do it now. No, that's actually, and because it's a big part of the conversation these days, and that fantastic It Gets Better campaign and so much conversation about bullying. I mean, you were as far as Canadian athletes go, you were the guy.
I was the guy. I'm almost still the guy, which is a little bit sad 12 years later. Yeah. A soccer player just came out a couple of weeks ago in Montreal.
The Impact, that's right.
From the Impact. He's American. He's not Canadian, but he plays for a Canadian team, which is fantastic.
It's interesting that it's still part of the conversation, but I want to have it with you because it's important that people talk about it.
Sure.
So kids know what they're going to go through. It isn't enough to say it'll get better. It isn't, we have to make it better. But it is astonishing that it's still just you. Why do you think that is? Is it possible that the rest are all straight?
No. You know, I wish there was an easy answer. I for 12 years, have talked about this and tried to figure out why. There's so many different elements involved. I think sport by nature is very conservative, right? It's rule-bound, it's slow to change. I think there's certain cultures that are more boys club, male-oriented, and there's the whole, I guess, argument, well, it's my personal life. That was for me a long time. It doesn't impact how I play. But I'll tell you something, George. You know, my last year of swimming, I had to make 7 years improvement in about 10 months. The world record was shattered in my event. And there was a moment when I knew that this demon that I had inside was really holding me back from that external goal. And I told one of my coaches, it was a woman. And it was probably only a woman that I could. I don't think I felt comfortable to tell a male coach at that time. And the relief that I felt and the improvement that I made actually made that 7 years in less than 10 months. So I really think there's a direct impact between being authentic, of course, and being able to get the most out of yourself. But people still are uncomfortable going there. And even women in lesbians in sport, it's a different reason. They're encouraged not to come out, not to perpetuate the stereotype that all female athletes are lesbians. In the male side, it's, well, there are no gay athletes. So there's these two kind of same sides of a double-edged blade that keeps sport really, I think, behind the rest of society.
I'm sure there were people inside the Canadian Olympic Committee that did not want you to come out. Did they ever tell you that?
For sure they told me not to come out, absolutely. I mean, the person that mentored me basically said it was fine that I was gay, and then I spoke about it. She said, I didn't say it was okay to speak about it. Wait a minute here. And incredibly, so I went, I really went for about 12 years down the gay LGBT, we call it, LGBT sport world. And I went to a swimming competition, the Gay World Championships, if you will. There were 5 guys that I used to swim with on the University of Calgary swimming team out of a team of about 24 people that were also there. And I went, we were all together in those formative years that were so brutal, and we were all closeted to each other. If we'd just spoken out, we would have had a little sense of community. But so that's why it's really important. I mean, that's why I felt personally it was important to speak out about it. I mean, for a long time, I was horrified at the thought of my private life being made public. But there came a point where celebrity, or whatever you want to call it, where I realized I can't make that distinction. I have to be who I am in all situations, and that means, living my own truth.
Do you ever counsel do people who have public profile who are gay come to you and ask you about the experience?
They sure do. Yeah, and other athletes, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. I'm thrilled to share my experience, and I have always the same, there's no pressure for you to make any decision. I really feel like every person has their own time where they feel like I feel good enough in my own skin. I think you have to be really careful when you take on being a role model, or wherever you want to call that, because if you're not comfortable in your own skin, you're not really a great example for other people. So you have to make sure that you feel really good about yourself, and that it's not going to impede performance also. Obviously, with an athlete, my bottom line is I want our athletes to perform.
The real impact is going to be when a hockey player comes out. Can you foresee a time, near future, where a gay NHLer will exist? I
think so. I've counseled a few that didn't actually carry through. So far, not even a retired hockey player, except for Brian Burke's son, Brendan, who was part of the management of a team, came out. I think with, Brian Burke now speaking to a lot of LGBT audiences and issues and about this issue.
His comments about marching with his son at the Pride Parade that brought tears to our eyes. Like, Brian Burke is a leader in this.
And the old argument was, I used to think it had to be the player that changed, and I realized it has to be the management. And the leadership has to create the environment where the player feels safe enough to come out.
Stick around. We're going to carry this on with Mark. We'll talk about memorable Olympic moments as well for you, and anthropology with the Took when we come back. There's Mark Tewksbury back at Barcelona. Hey, we had the Tewksburys in that shot.
Yeah, my mom and dad were there. Oh, they were so cute. My mom's like, my dad's like.
I mean, I'm sure the athletes who are going to get into it for 2012 and in future games, if your parents or whoever your guardians are, put so much work into your development, it's not just your personal best that you're going for. Do you feel the pressure for all those who are there with you?
It's a good question. I think every athlete's a little bit different. I think most of us, we want it so much for ourselves. Of course, it's the glory for Canada, etc. But you know, I don't think an outside person could put more pressure on the athlete than the athlete wants themselves.
What do you think about? Listen, I hesitate to use the word cheating, but.
What you just did.
I did. Because no, there are people who don't. It's the technology
I see where you're going.
Swimming, right?
Right.
The suits and all that. I don't like the suits because when I say cheating, I mean it's an asterisk. World record times in a sport where tenths and hundreds. What do you think about the suits? I mean, they're revealing, but what do you think about them?
It's funny, you know, I never followed records and stuff and things even that I held. And with that suit, my Canadian record that was 18 years old, that was like no one had been within a second of it, was broken. And then I was pissed. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. The last suit went too far. I mean, I think you have to allow some technology in, and it has to be fair access. I think the last bathing suit with polyurethanes, you're floating, and not just that, it had elastic in it, so that when you propelled down, the suit pulled your leg back up.
Right.
So that's why Phelps got beaten, because guys that didn't have the same fitness level didn't have to exert the same amount of energy at the beginning of the race to stay with them and could beat him at the end. So that was too far, and that's when the suit was banned. But yes, you'll never get those back.
You brought up Phelps. You know, watching the Olympics, and I was so excited to watch Phelps because it felt like there was a guy that was born to do just that, and everything was perfect.
And he was born to do it. Do you know that? I did a little series for the National Film Board called Miracle Body. Yeah. And he literally has the perfect anatomy to be a swimmer. Long feet, long torso, everything a little bit hyperflexible. So he really does have a physical advantage. But to be able to perform under pressure,
that's the craziest part.
And win 8 medals in a row, that's superhuman. I don't care how much you're built for a sport, that requires all of that.
What was your most memorable Olympic moment?
Winning a silver with Victor Davis, and there's a certain generation that remembers the iconic Victor Davis that was just a pure brute, raw talent and rough around the edges, more famous for kicking a chair in front of the Queen than for his medals. That to see him unite 4 of us that kind of hated each other for a medal that we shouldn't have won, but with him at the lead, we were able to do it, that was very magical.
You're looking younger these days. What are you doing?
It's that George Strombo vegan diet that I started a year and a half before you.
You've gone vegan too?
Yeah, well, I call it flexitarian, which is kind of cheesy, but because I have like 10 to 20% animal protein, but I really changed how
cheeseburgers? Like, what do you do?
Well, it depends. I don't usually cook any meat at home, but when I travel all the time, so it's almost impossible. I'd weigh like nothing if I traveled. But you look great, George.
Oh, well, you know,
I'm saying that at the end of the interview, just note, right?
Mark Tewksbury, Canada's chef de mission for the upcoming London Olympics. We'll be right back. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Exploded. Not literally, he just got really fast. He broke the Olympic record for the 100-meter backstroke, capturing gold and the hearts of this glorious country. And when he retired from competition, Mark started what looked like a promising career with the International Olympic Committee. But inside, he was drowning. Mark was gay. He considered coming out, but was discouraged by the IOC, discouraged by fellow athletes, even his coaches. They said the world wasn't ready, but Mark was. In 1998, he came out, Canada's first openly gay Olympian. And while he did lose a few endorsement deals, he's actually found new meaning in his life.
The spirit of the Olympics has been betrayed by the actions of the International Olympic Committee.
He spoke out against IOC corruption, founded the first ever World Out Games, and became a mentor to athletes who felt stuck in the closet. And it's as a mentor that Mark finds himself back on the Canadian Olympic team. He is leading the charge to London as Canada's chef de mission.
Instead of the most...
It's one of those feel-good Olympic stories that dreams are made of, or so we thought. When Mark was 5, the Tewksbury family moved from Calgary to Dallas. He beat the Texas heat by hanging out at the local pool. But when the family moved back to Calgary, well, Mark just kept on swimming. The '76 Summer Games inspired him to race competitively, and 12 years later, he won a silver medal in Seoul. And then in 1992, at the Games in Barcelona, Mark.
Still the 2012 London Olympic team for Canada.
It's a pretty incredible story for you to be that guy, don't you think?
Well, it's a very exciting place to be for me.
Is it?
I've seen the athletes from a number of different perspectives, and it's great to be the head of their delegation on, you know, the time it counts the most.
But it means that you're the same guy that was a big part of that organization that protested Olympic corruption and quit. So the idea of you weren't even a part of the organization to be in this position, that's...
Gold medals, which we achieved in Vancouver. We're looking for a top 12 finish out of the over 200 countries competing.
Please welcome Mark Tewksbury. Hey, bud. I guess
Athletically entered.
That's great. Man, when I heard you became the mission chef, I thought, oh my God, he's now a cook. But it turns out...
Which I can do.
You can do.
I can do, but not for 400.
No, now you're the chief mission.
Yeah, chef de